Welcome back to my channel and today's video. So today's Swedish word is woman, which is a Swedish kvinna. Kvinna. So today I'm gonna do another true crime case, and if you're new here, I do my makeup while talking about a true crime case, which I am so inspired by Bailey Sarian, so a huge credit to her. I will leave her channel, oh my god, I have dog hair here. I'll link her channel down below. Before we hop into this video, I want to make a disclaimer. This case has taken me weeks and weeks to do research on because it has affected me in a way, a very negative way, so I actually had to just put it aside for a little bit before taking it back up again, because this video will contain abuse against women from a man that hates women, obviously. I will not tolerate any hate or victim blaming, not to the victim, not to the victim's family, not to the victim's friends. All of that will be deleted and you will be blocked. Just so you guys know, I feel very, very strongly about this. Just so you know, let's get into it. On the night of May 14th and May 15th, a young woman by the name of Tova Moberg gets brutally murdered. Tova is only 19 years old. Not only is she getting strangled, but she's beaten to death with a hammer. This is a brutal murder. She's taped to a wheelbarrow and is driven into a lake that's in a Swedish town called Hudiksvall. Her ex-boyfriend, Billy Fagerström, is the one who gets arrested and convicted for the murder. Spoiler alert. Sadly, this 19-year-old woman knew she was going to die and she prepared for her death. This young, beautiful, vibrant woman knew that she was going to die. Billy and Tova started their relationship on January 22nd, 2014. Sorry. Sometimes it's hard to keep everything in your head. Tova was living with her parents, and she was living with her parents up till the day she died. Billy, on the other hand, I don't really know where he lived when they got together, but I do know that he lived in his own house that was owned by his father. He did not live there alone. He lived there with his friend Demi, who lived there rent-free. But again, his father was the owner of the house. Now, you might think that the relationship started out bad since we all know the ending, but no, it was actually on the contrary. They had a great relationship in the beginning and they were like very, very lovey-dovey. You guys know how it is when you meet a new love. You're so like kissy-dissy and you just want to be close to that person. It isn't really known exactly the date on when the relationship started to go south, but we can believe that it had to do with the fact that Billy actually had his driver's license, but he lost it. I don't really know why, if he was speeding or if he was driving under the influence. I actually didn't write it down, but I do know that he lost his driver's license, and after this he started to get kind of depressed. He started to smoke a lot of cannabis, he started to make and sell spice, and he was just kind of home all the time and he hadn't really a lot to do, and this of course affected him negatively. He went to the doctor, he got some pills, and again, he just didn't feel very well. Around this time, he started to control Tova. She was not allowed to hang out with certain friends, like for instance her best friends. She was not allowed to do certain things, and we'll get into more later on in this video. But he could get mad at her for something that a normal person wouldn't really get mad at. For instance, when Tova was going to school, she could pick some extra classes. This is mandatory. You're not allowed to skip it in Sweden. You have to pick your extra classes. It can be anything from going to a choir to studying English or studying math, a more advanced math. So you get the gist of it. And she said to Billy that she was going to study language, but Tova actually changed her mind and picked gymnastic instead. This resulted in that Billy, he got so mad at her that he yelled at her, and he was very, very upset. It even went to the point where he pinched her on her thigh. And I know that this might sound super duper silly, like, oh, he pinched her, But it was more brutal than that. She had a big, ginormous bruise on her thigh, and he was just yelling at her, and he physically abused her. Their relationship was actually going to come to an end. You see, they were fighting a lot, as you could tell by this little story as I just told you guys. And they broke up with each other, but then they got back together. They broke up with each other, they got back together. So they had that sort of relationship. I feel like all of us, or at least most of us, has had those kinds of friends. I had that anyway. I had a lot of friends who kept ending it with their boyfriends just to get back together like the next day, and I was just so annoyed. I was like, can you make up your own freaking mind? The final straw was in March 2017. And that was when Tova and Billy had actually hung out. And Tova was going to the swimming hall, and you guys know Billy didn't have his driver's license. So Billy was in the car with her, but Tova was driving. She ended up stopping at her place. She needed to pick up some things so that she could go swimming. Before she would go swimming, she would drop Billy off at his house. When she goes inside to her house, or to her parents' house, Billy waits outside in the car. And Tova's mother, which her name is Annika, was sitting in the kitchen, and when Tova comes inside the house, she yells at her daughter, "Hi, hon," or whatever. But Tova runs into the bathroom immediately, and she doesn't want to respond to her mother, so her mother gets up, and then she walks up to Tova. And she sees that Tova is completely bruised and swollen in her entire face. So she stops her, she takes her on the shoulder and says to her, like, "Has Billy done this to you?" And she breaks down. Tova just starts crying and crying, and she says that yes, Billy is the one who had hit her. He got mad, but that she needed to go outside. Her mother is like, "No, you cannot go out to this boy. You cannot hang out with him anymore. He's not good for you. You're not allowed to see him." And Tova said to her mother, like, "Please, I need to go outside, because otherwise he will know that I've talked to you, and it will just make things worse." So that was kind of the hardest thing that Annika ever had to do, Tova's mother. She had to let her daughter go, but she was so scared that if she didn't let her go, that he would just beat her even more. The next day, however, Annika photographs Tova, and then she goes to the police to press charges against Billy for abusing her daughter. And this doesn't lead up to anything, because Tova doesn't want to be a part of the investigation, so the police can't really do anything. They're like, yeah, but what are we supposed to do? Like, we can't do anything if she doesn't want to be a part of the investigation. There should be some form of law against that, but I get that there's a flaw with it, but still, like, it would be good for the victims. Of course, Billy gets the memo that Annika has pressed charges against him. So he kind of realized that maybe he and Tova shouldn't be together, because they are obviously not good for each other. I mean, I would say that Tova was too good for him. Billy was, however, not very good to Tova. That's just my personal opinion. They do break up at this time, however. This is the last breakup that they have. So they end everything with each other. They come to the understanding that they shouldn't really be together. They shouldn't really talk to each other, and they shouldn't be involved in each other's life. Of course, they couldn't keep their hands off each other. So they start seeing each other, but it's kind of a little bit like friends with benefits. Of course, Annika, oh my god, I get so much of this Too Faced powder in my mouth, and it tastes pretty good. But when you get a lot of it, it's like, no. I'm just gonna stay quiet. So, of course, they don't say anything to Tova's mother, Annika, because all hell would have broken loose. When I do my scripts, I read them out loud for myself a couple of times, just so I kind of know the full story and how I'm supposed to tell you guys. It just dawned on me that in the beginning of this video, I said that Tova got murdered between May 14th and May 15th. That's not correct. She was murdered between May 13th and May 14th. So, as I said, they were sneaking around, they were kind of friends with benefits, having sex, seeing each other like that. Now we are at May 13th, which was a Saturday. Billy was hanging out with some of his friends. they were going on a car cruise later that same day, and Tova was actually going to a party. So she had asked her mother if she could give her a ride to her friend's house so that she could go to this party, which Annika, her mother, agreed to. However, this wasn't really completely true. She was lying to her mother. She was actually planning to hang out with her ex-boyfriend Billy. So she was just dropped off at her friend's house, but she had no business there. She was dropped off at 9:45 p.m. At the same time that Annika drops Tova off at her friend's house, Billy is hanging out with a lot of friends, as I said, and he asks everyone to leave except for one of his friends. He says that he needs to talk to this friend and he wants to do it in private. So since this is Billy's house and everything, and they are going to the town anyway to go to this car cruise, they're like, okay, fine, whatever, we're just gonna go early and we'll see you later. I think that the house that he had was called like the countryside. I talked to one of my friends. I'll put a picture right here so you can see kind of how he lived. He lived very in the forest by himself. He didn't have any close neighbors or anything, just so you kind of get the gist of it. Now Billy is finally alone with this one friend that he needed to talk to. Of course, he has nothing really important to say. He just asks this friend, can you help me pick up Tova? Billy didn't have his driver's license, so he needed someone to pick her up. He wanted this guy to pick her up, but he was not allowed to say that to anyone. So they pick her up, they go back to Billy's house, and the three of them stay there for about 20 minutes. Then this other friend leaves. Billy actually says to him, you need to leave my house, you need to sit outside and wait for your ride. And you're not allowed to tell the other ones that Tova is here. Are you clear on that? And he's like, yeah, whatever. Like, he's a dude. You know how dudes are? They're like, fine, whatever. They don't really care. They're just like, no, yeah, whatever. And he says that Billy acted a little bit strange. He kind of just locked the door when he pushed his friend outside. So he thought that that was a little bit strange, but he didn't really reflect on it that much. He was just kind of like, yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna sit here and wait for my ride. So what I'm gonna tell you right now is Billy's side of the story. So Billy says that he and Tova, when she arrived, they had sex, and they were sitting at the table drinking. They hung out for a few hours, and then she got some friends who picked her up. He didn't know these friends, but he could see that there was a black car. I don't remember what kind of car he said that it was, but it was a dark black one anyway. After this, Billy had a friend who showed up at his house. This friend is called Ludde, and this is not technically one of his friends. It's a friend that he was in business with. They talked about drugs and they sold drugs together. This was a guy that Billy was scared of. Ludde was obviously not his real name. It was just kind of a name. To the police later on, he never wanted to say who this guy was or his real name. He never wanted to say anything about this guy because obviously he was scared. And to be fair, if this guy really exists, I wouldn't do that either. Now, if you would say the name Ludde to some of Billy's friends, they would be like, oh, that guy, yeah, we don't like him, he's a nerd, he's no one to be scared of, and that guy was in Stockholm that same night. So it is a little bit strange that no one has heard about this guy Ludde before. Maybe there's a reason why he doesn't want to give this guy up, because maybe he doesn't exist. After this, Billy takes some pills. You might remember me saying that Billy was a little bit depressed, so he went to the doctor. Apparently he got some pills from there, or he had some other pills that he got from, you know, one of his drug friends or whatever. He passed out. He cannot remember what really happened. He remembers something about sitting by the computer and then kind of just sleeping until morning. Of course, we cannot confirm that this story isn't true, but we do know that parts of it isn't true. Billy said that Tova left before midnight, or just around midnight. But we do know that Tova was at his house at 15 minutes after 1 a.m. because she was actually calling one of her friends, which is proven. You can see that she was at his house, and then she also said that she was hanging out with Billy. Her friend actually asked her, like, are you all right? Is everything good between you guys? And Tova was laughing. She was saying, yeah, everything is fine, we're good, like there's nothing going on here. Another thing that text message does prove is that Billy actually sent some text to his friends. So remember that I said that Billy didn't live alone at his house. He had a friend who lived there as well. Of course, this friend is gonna come home at some time during the night. So I'm just gonna look at my notes right now, but at 20 minutes after 11 a.m., he texts his friend and says, tell me if you're going here. And then he sends another text saying, before you're going here. And then 5 minutes after that, he sends another text where it says, don't come here right now, I'm here with Ludde. 20 minutes past 2 a.m., he sends another text to his friend that says, don't come yet. And then he sends another text that says, absolutely not yet. His friend replies with, okay. But then he sends another text saying that, you know, me and the guys kind of want to go back to the house and sleep, we're a little bit tired. A few minutes later, Billy calls up this friend and Billy is panting a lot. And he says that he's gonna call him in 10 minutes, but he never gets the chance to call him back because his friend actually sends a text saying that, you know what, don't bother, we found a place to sleep, so we're just gonna crash at yada yada yada's place and sleep there tonight. At this same time, Tova's cell phone is turned off. Just looking at the phone records and seeing the texts, it is very, very clear to me that he didn't want anyone to come to the island. He didn't want anyone to be there with him. He wanted to be there alone and he was kind of stressed. Let's go into the theory that the police has. Sometime between 1:30 a.m. and 2:20 a.m., he kills Tova with a hammer. He picks up a hammer, strikes it to her head more than 20 times. He also strangles her, but it is the hammer that eventually kills her. Then he lets her lay on the ground and bleed out. Then he drags Tova's body around 20 meters. It is theorized that he thinks that it's kind of a struggle, so he sees a wheelbarrow that he puts her in. Then he takes tape and tapes her into this wheelbarrow so she won't fall out. He also takes wires to keep her inside the wheelbarrow. He spends so much time with these wires that they are even put into her shoes to keep her inside this wheelbarrow. He puts weights on this wheelbarrow. He drives this wheelbarrow down to the lake. I'm gonna again put up a picture so you can see kind of how he lives. He drives this to the lake and then he pushes the wheelbarrow with Tova's body into the lake. He throws in Tova's cell phone and he throws in the hammer that he used to kill her with. And let me tell you, this guy kind of knows what he's doing, which kind of scares me a little bit because he rakes over all of the traces, you know, that the wheelbarrow did. He burns his clothes. He denies burning his clothes, but the thing is that he did have a jacket that he used all the time. He did have a shirt that he was wearing that same night, and now they were completely gone. And near his house, they could find a barrel, and in this barrel, you could find buttons from his jacket, proven to them that he burned his jacket and he burned the evidence. He probably burned his shirt that he was wearing that same night as well. I feel like I've been blending for hours. The following morning, he doesn't do his normal little routine, sleep into like noon. No. He takes his bike and then he bicycles 8 kilometers to his father's house. And at his father's house, he takes a bath. In the bath, he puts up a little Snapchat story. This guy is like super duper clever. Just between you and me, if you're gonna commit murder, maybe don't post shit like this after you've killed someone, okay? If you don't want to get caught. So here's the little Snapchat picture that he posted on his wall. And I know that most of you guys aren't from Sweden. You might not know Swedish, so I'm gonna translate it to you guys. I guess that you can see the first word and what that is, it says fucking shit life. As I didn't have enough problems already, but this takes the price. Yeah, you just committed murder. No one forced you. So that same morning, Annika, which is Tova's mother, as you might remember, she wakes up and she gets a little bit confused because Tova and her had said that they were gonna speak to each other that night. Tova was gonna call her when she needed a ride home. Annika was very tired during the night, so she went to bed with her cell phone right next to her so that she could wake up when Tova called. Then she would get up, get in the car, go ahead and pick up her daughter, go back home and go to sleep again. Obviously Tova hasn't called, so she gets a little bit worried. So she calls Tova's cell phone and no one answers, nothing happens. So she calls to the friend that she was supposed to hang out with that night, and she says that, I'm sorry, she lied to you. She was actually going to hang out with Billy and she was with Billy last night. So now Annika is freaking out. She's like, what? She's so scared for her daughter. So she goes to Billy's house and she looks for Tova. She knocks on the door, but as you guys know, Billy isn't home. He is at his father's house taking a bath. Eventually, Tova's father also comes to the house and they actually get like so worried that they break into the house. When I heard that, I was like, go you. But as you guys know, they didn't find Tova, they didn't find Billy, so they ended up going to Billy's father's house and they found him there. Billy says that he has no idea where Tova is. And 3:30 that same day, Tova is reported missing. Billy doesn't try to look for Tova, but instead he gets one of his friends to drive him into town, and there in town he buys some... Oh, I didn't write it down because I know so little about it, but he bought something so that he could fix his boat. And then he and his friends drive back to his house, and there they spend the day to try and fix this boat. So since the police knows that Billy is the last one to see Tova, they go to his house to see if he has some information. And when they come to his house, he and his friends are fixing his boat. So they talk to him, and this is when Billy has already spoken to his friends and said to them that he wants them to lie. He wants them all to have the same story. So I don't really know what kind of story they pulled, but I do believe that it was something along the lines of like, they came, picked him up around this and this time, and then he was with them at the car cruise. So they just kind of asked him for some information, and the police said that he seemed not that worried, but he still said that he was kind of worried, and they thought that he just didn't seem genuine. Later on that day, he actually calls the police. He doesn't call the investigators that he had talked to that same day, but he calls, I don't know if it is the same in like Sweden and other countries, but here in Sweden we call 112 to report if something has happened, like emergencies. But then we have another number that we can call, that is 11414, and there we can talk about stuff that isn't urgent. So he calls this number to give them some information about this that he just remembered, and he wanted to help. So this is when he says to the operator that Tova came over just to have some drinks and hang out a little bit, and then she left his house around 12:30 or like 1:30, somewhere around that time. But this is when he says that some of her friends that he had never heard of before picks her up. Why is it so muddy here? It's like super muddy. I don't really know what's going on here. Anyway, this is when he gives the police a lot of like false information. But what he also says to the operator, and he says that he is scared for Tova, and he says that maybe she's locked up somewhere, or I quote, I have translated to English of course, but I walk around being worried. I mean, she might not even be alive. No shit, Sherlock. Eventually, they arrest Billy and two of his friends, but Billy actually confessed that, yes, I asked them to lie for me because I know how it looks. I'm the ex-boyfriend. Of course, people are gonna point their finger at me. So they let his friends go, and now they only had Billy in custody. So they arrest Billy on May 15th. So the next day they actually go to his house to see if they can find any traces, and they go to the house with dogs and stuff. They find a lot. They find blood, they find traces of someone being dragged, they find a lot of things, but they also find like footprints out into the water. So eventually they call in divers and they find Tova's body very, very quick. They find Tova's cell phone, they find the hammer. I'm so sorry for stuttering, it's been a long, long day. So of course now Billy is looking even more suspicious. They find Tova's body on his property. And just a quick detail about the boat, it was theorized that he wanted to fix the boat really quick so that he could go out in the boat, take up Tova's body and dump it somewhere else so it wouldn't be on his property, because he kind of assumed that they would look there. So remember when I said that according to Billy and his story, he says that he took some pills and then he fell asleep. Well, they could prove in the trial that this might not really be true. Because you see, if you have a phone that's a little bit up to date, they have a pedometer that shows how many steps you have walked and how many kilometers you have walked. He had in fact went down to the lake. They could see this, and I listened to the investigation. You can go ahead and download the files if you want to, but I listened to it and his explanation was like, maybe there was something wrong with his phone. Like, come on, no. You went down there to dump the body, but you just don't want to admit it. So I just did the rest of my makeup off camera because I only had lips and I can't talk while doing my lips. But a big part of this story is that in the beginning of the video, and I probably titled this video that Tova knew that she was going to die, or at least she prepared for her death. And I haven't really spoken a lot about that, but I thought that I would do that right now in the end because this is heartbreaking. As I said, Billy controlled Tova a lot. She was not allowed to see some of her friends. Of course, she still saw them, but behind Billy's back, because these were her best friends and she loved them. They were her everything. Billy wrote really nasty texts to Tova, and she could not screenshot these because you know how it is with the cloud and everything. If you screenshot things, it will get to the cloud. So if she did that, Billy would know that she had screenshotted them and maybe she sent them to someone and she would get punished for this. So instead she had friends take photos of her phone with text that he sent her, and I'm gonna put some of the text on the screen right now. I need to look at them on my computer just so I don't misquote them. So I'm gonna have a picture right here on the screen so you can see it, but again, it is in Swedish, so I will translate it for you. So the white bars is from Billy and then the green bars are from Tova. And the first text that Billy sends to her is, when it's your birthday, I'm gonna spit you in the face. And when you graduate, there will be a lot of mingle. And if that's the case, I'm gonna beat you until you break that same night. And I decide when you mingle, because you have a twisted feminist picture. And don't you ever believe that I'm joking about this regarding your graduation. And Tova replies, in history, we're working with democratic development in Sweden, and we're gonna have a test on Thursday. So this is another picture, and here Billy says, let's see if the bitch cares after we have seen each other. Tova replies, please stop. Billy replies, you're going to obey me 100%, and if you don't, you will fucking die. Here's another one, and the first bars is from Tova, and she says, but I told you now, I didn't erase anything. And then she also says, my class begins in 20 minutes. I don't want to come today. I haven't done anything to deserve to die, and I have told you everything you wanted to know. You need to calm down. He replies, you don't want to come today, with 6 laughing emojis. And then he says, you're coming fucking here as soon as you have quit school, I say. Tova replies, please calm down. Billy replies, decide now if you're gonna come or not. If not, I'm gonna hide in your garage. And then he says, you can't. These are just some of the texts. Tova did not save these pictures on her friends' phones. No, she was smarter than that. Do you know what she did? She had a diary where she documented every abuse that Billy ever did to her. She had a flash drive where these pictures were and pictures where he had abused her. So she photographed these injuries that he gave her, and then she put them in this flash drive, hid them away, and then she wrote in her diary that if someone finds this diary, I'm probably dead. She wrote about her love against her family and her friends. And as I said, she wrote about the abuse that Billy gave her. So some things that she wrote in her diary was that she didn't have Billy's permission to go to prom. And as I said, she was not allowed to see two of her best friends. She writes, and I will quote, he told me I had to stop hanging out with them or die. He threatened me, beat me, strangled me. He kept on going the entire night. Then I had to text them and break up with them. She was not allowed to go and swim as she loved because someone could see all of the bruises on her body. Another thing she writes in her diary is that he told me he was going to tear off all of my clothes and lock me outside. It's really cold now. It's around minus 25 to 30 degrees. He told me he would do that because he couldn't hit me anymore. Mom would see the bruises. This is after Annika, Tova's mother, pressed charges against him. So he knew that he cannot beat her or hit her on her face or on her body, because then she would see that and press charges again. So he had to find other ways to be creative. So remember when I said that he was so mad that she picked gymnastic instead of language? In the trial, he says that he was so mad about this because of the fact that she lied to him, and that wasn't cool. And that was why he was upset, but he never beat her for it. He was just annoyed over the fact that she lied. According to Tova's diary, this wasn't the case. He, as I said, pinched her on her thighs, so she got a huge bruise. He also dragged her out of the car and threw her in a ditch. He said multiple times different ways that he would kill her on. He said that he would kill her using different vehicles, and he said the most awful things. This is such an important thing for me to say, that if you are in an abusive relationship, or if you are in a relationship where your partner is keeping you from doing things, like for instance seeing different people, going to certain events, if the person tries to control you, that's a red flag, and you need to leave that relationship right away, because you never know where it's going to end. I just have to say this as well, because a lot of the times thinks that we have juries in Sweden. We do not. We have judges who decides. We have multiple judges who decides if someone should be sentenced or not. And Billy got sentenced. Obviously, he got sentenced to life in prison, which is average 16 years. He has just been there for a small period of time, and I hope that he rots in there. As I said, Billy didn't confess to the murder, but 2 years after the murder, and when the trial and everything was done, he did confess, but he confessed to a TV channel, and he said that he was responsible for her death, but he wasn't responsible for anything other than that. Like, he wasn't responsible for abusing her or anything like that. He confesses to hitting her once, but he accidentally hit her because he kind of pushed her so that she hurt herself, and that he takes full responsibility for, but nothing else. To me, just looking at these text messages and seeing some things that Tova wrote in her diary, it's pretty clear to me that he did abuse her. She had nothing to win to lie in her own diary that she hid away. She hid this, and she had proof. She had pictures of herself where he had hit her. He is a disgusting man, and I hope that he never comes out, because I am sure that he would do this again because he's sick. A quick little reminder, I know that my subscribers won't do this, but there's always people, this video might reach someone, and again, I won't have anyone blaming the family, blaming the parents, blaming her friends, blaming her. No. She was a victim, and a lot of people say, I don't get why people stay in abusive relationships. It doesn't start with you dating someone and they hit you on the first date. You lean into it, you have emotions, they abuse you, they see how far they can go, and then it just gets more and more. So I just wanted to say that, but that was all from me today. Like if you want to, please share this video. It would really mean a lot to me. Like it, comment, help me get these videos out there. It would really mean so much to me. But I'm gonna leave now, so thank you for watching this video. Bye.